Welcome to Hope Peace Together, a sanctuary where we work through life's hardest seasons. Today I have two special guests. I have Kim and Bridget here with me, and we're just going to start by introducing ourselves a little bit. Bridget, you're first on my screen. Would you mind introducing yourself?
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you for having me here today. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm Bridget Austin. I host the Reconnection Space on Substack, and I'm passionate about coaching, photography, mindfulness, all of those things. I'm delighted to be here.
Welcome. Thank you for joining us. So glad to have you.
Thank you.
And yeah, Kim, can you share a little bit about yourself?
Yes, thank you, Michelle, for hosting us and bringing us together today. And just thank you and hello to everybody who's listening. It's really lovely to have you with us. So I'm Kim, and I write Sanctuary. I write seasonal stories that are inspired by trees and travel and nature and wonder and landscapes. Like Bridget, I'm also um, a big fan of mindfulness and try to practice mindfulness daily um, as well.
Oh, looks like we may have lost Kim for just a minute. Hopefully, she will be able to get back on. Have to love technical difficulties. I liked what she was saying about mindfulness, though, and Bridget, what you said about mindfulness. As a mental health therapist, that's been something that's been really important for me in my life as well. I've been practicing meditation and mindfulness for over 2 decades. Hey, Kim made it back.
Hi, I'm sorry. I don't know what happened there.
That's okay. My power went out about 15 minutes before that for just a blip. So sometimes things happen.
Oh, no.
Was there more that you wanted to share with us about who you
Not
are?
at all. Not at all. Michelle, please go ahead. I think you were introducing yourself as well.
Yeah, I was just talking about mindfulness a little bit as a mental health therapist and how I've been practicing that for over 2 decades. And it's a big part of my practice and my personal life as well. That's probably a good segue into how this collaboration came together. So, do you guys want to talk and share a little bit about what inspired us to join together?
Yeah, I think we were all subscribing to each other on Substack and found each other at a similar time and noticed that we were sharing similar themes. The serendipity at times was quite astounding in terms of what we were each separately commenting on and talking about alongside what you Kim and Michelle, what I was putting was similar to a similar theme to what Kim and Michelle you were putting, but in different ways. And I think we felt that kind of connection. And then Kim, I don't know whether you want to talk briefly about our Holly and Hawthorne piece and how that then led to this collaboration.
Hmm. Yeah, so it was about a couple of months ago that Bridget and I collaborated on another post. And so I do a series of different posts on the Celtic tree calendar and had noticed that Bridget had been writing around holly. So I reached out to her and we did a collaboration together, and it was just really interesting. Bridget talked a lot about connections and the serendipity and sort of the themes. Um, and so coming together, I really love collaborating because I just feel like we learn so much when we get to know people and their experiences and their perspectives. And it was just really interesting to see how our writing kind of started to converge and come together in really creative and serendipitous ways. And then I think Michelle read our collaboration on Hawthorne and Holly and said, hey, I would love to collaborate. And in many ways, it kind of reminded me that, you know, we're all separate, you know, in terms of writing. We're doing our own projects and our own things on Substack, but it's kind of like the hive, kind of like the Happy Bee story, where we're all coming together and we're all part of this community. And it's just really fun and exciting to be part of that energy of coming together and from learning from one another. And so we're excited to take the next step and start collaborating with Michelle and going in a different direction and sort of seeing where the past might lead us. So Michelle, I'll kind of turn it back to you, and maybe you can tell us why you were kind of interested in the collaboration.
Yeah, well, I appreciated reading your piece and seeing how the threads wove together. Even though you two were able to write your own unique pieces, they still connected and intertwined really well together. And I think community is so important for us here on Substack to build and develop and connect with us. Such a lovely community. And just building on that seemed very beneficial and a lot of fun. So that's what led me to reach out. And I'm glad that we did, because now we're here. Kind of on that note, as we were pulling this together, what maybe surprised each of us about how our themes did end up connecting with one another? We do have each of us a unique way of sharing our messages with the world, but they do end up having that invisible string that weaves them together.
Yeah, I think we're all very much connected through nature, from taking a step back, from being in the moment. And for me also, around what I notice is it's about thinking about what brings us joy, how can we look after ourselves, our resilience, those sort of tips and techniques that help us through each day and through our greater life, but doing it in a way that's creative and tells a story that allows people to engage, rather than telling people what we think people should do or what we should do. And that's what I kind of appreciate in the way that our 3 articles have come together. We all have our different ways of sharing, but we have those common threads and themes through them.
I will kind of pick up on that. I think, you know, that was really the fun part of the adventure for me as well, is that we kind of started with a similar idea. You know, we kind of discussed and said, you know, this is kind of some of the themes that are coming up for me right now. And it was almost like the process of collaborating together was kind of like a choose your own adventure, that we had these different pathways, different perspectives. So we each had a different way of looking at this one shared experience, and exploring it differently. And I guess what surprised me most is that when you step back and you look at those different paths, how often they sort of converge and kind of wind around and come back together. And so that was a really lovely experience. I'm not sure it surprised me, but I was really grateful. You know, I kind of half expected that it would, because we share so much in common already, but it was just a really lovely connection to see those paths converging.
Yeah, I really appreciated the choose your own adventure piece. That made it a lot of fun and a good segue that people could find a different perspective or a different view by following whichever article they wanted to read next. I really liked it too, how we all focus kind of on that mindfulness piece of what happens when we're able to slow down and really notice our life, whether it's a bee or just noticing what's happening in nature, seeing things from a different viewpoint, that they all really do connect with each other and take it to a different level, a deeper level. Bridget, would you like to share a little bit about your article? You talked about noticing as a return rather than an arrival. What did you see or experience that maybe you were returning to?
Yeah, I think my journey around noticing has been um, fragmented a little bit. I think as a child, I was very much out in nature, noticing, carefree, enjoying, playing, all of those things. Curious, not questioning in a negative way, but curious to sort of find out what was out there. And I think sort of along the way in the journey of life and, you know, through school and one thing and another, my personality is such that I kind of like mold to the structures and the routines and the going with the flow that maybe is going on around me rather than perhaps taking always the lead myself. So I think in that, getting caught up in that and wanting to do well at school and then moving through to the next progression in terms of education and then on to life itself, first job, and get the excitement of that and going on that career pathway, things just start to happen and you sort of, I didn't feel like I was tuned into noticing in the same way that I am now. I was kind of responding, I guess, to what I think society might think I should do, what I thought I should do, what I thought my family might think I should do, and so on. And then all of a sudden, at different points in life, things kind of catch up with you. And I think I'm at a point in my life now where certain things did catch up with me, and I had to take a step back. And noticing was part of my return to myself. I knew I was doing it already at that stage, but I really had to do it, and mindfulness and breathing and all sorts of things to kind of bring me back to myself. And that was really the return. It wasn't that it was an arrival. It wasn't something new. It was then that I realized that it was something I had always been doing, but I lost the way. Excuse me.
You're okay. It sounds like it was really helpful and beneficial for you to navigate some life changes and let go of expectations to find your own path and your own journey.
Yes, definitely. And it was sort of running alongside some health issues that I had, and also taking the decision to step away from a 36-year leadership development coaching career in the public sector. And my career had been very important to me. I enjoyed my career, so it really was a big thing for me to have to do. So being able to carry on with the journey of noticing through my practice of photography, walking, being out in nature, learning about aromatherapy and essential oils and the benefits there. And also just being able to express things through writing, reconnecting with writing, and the whole Substack journey is part of that, coming up onto Substack last November. And starting to write poetry. It took everything a step further for me and gave me that kind of purpose, that connection, no expectations, accepting where I am now, and trying to trust and learning to trust the process, and doing it for myself rather than for anybody else, and learning how to do that and to manage that, if you like, in terms of not having to please anybody else or have an expectation around it might lead to. Yeah.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. Being able to return to yourself, finding your own way, and navigating transitions. Kim, can you talk a little bit about your bee? Your article discussed like one of the main characters was this happy little bee just buzzing around, coming to visit, it going in and out. So when did you realize that this bee was so important to you?
Yeah, so I met my little bee this spring, actually. She was darting in and out of my greenhouse, and it was actually a late spring where I live. And so there wasn't much outside of my greenhouse for the bees to start pollinating. And so when this bee flew into my greenhouse, she was just delighted because there was, big flowers, and she was so happy that I could just feel her energy, that she had discovered this whole new green world, and she was just delighted. And I think it really goes back to what Bridget was talking about in terms of the art of noticing and returning to this. And I love how you talked about it as a journey and going through and coming back to noticing, Bridget, because I think that's what it was for me. And so I think I realized right away that there was a feeling, there was something about this little bee's happy soul that just sort of stayed with me. And I think it was because it was something that I wanted to experience for myself. So it was a feeling, and it was sitting with that feeling and getting curious about that feeling and just thinking about, where could this feeling lead me? And I knew that eventually this little bee would make her way into a story. And so I started talking to her like Beatrice does in the story, and just getting curious about where it might lead me to, and sort of just creating that space, allowing that space for magic to kind of just come into our lives. And that's kind of what you talked about in your post, Michelle. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So you're spot on there that, really pausing. What I heard in what you were saying, Kim, was you were able to pause and notice this bee coming in and out, this real bee that then was an inspiration for you. And that's exactly what making that space or allowing space for magic is all about. It's about noticing and observing the simple joys, the simple pleasures in our life. For me here lately, I always enjoy, as we start moving into fall, watching the squirrels running around and playing. And I've had a couple of black squirrels in my yard, in addition to the normal, like brown, red squirrels. So that's been a lot of fun. And that's always magical to watch them gather up everything and play and have so much fun while they're working. Very consistent with Bridget. I've been working on allowing space in my own life after a very significant life transition as well. Kind of changing up my career, figuring out my path forward. And so looking to nature, to magic, making space, knowing it's okay to enjoy this kind of in between space that I'm in, definitely has allowed me to slow down, know it's okay to be in the in between before rushing off to the next thing.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
it gives us a bit of a circuit breaker, doesn't it? The mindfulness. I was thinking about that before we came on to talk. It's almost like a circuit breaker, taking us away from the hurly-burly, the pressures, the expectations, our narratives in our heads that we all have, and so on. And it's just learning, and until it becomes a natural thing, to take that time just to sit with something, even if it's just for a nanosecond to start with. Sometimes that's all you can do, isn't it? But then as you start to practice it, you find yourself becoming more and more immersed in it, and just naturally taking advantage of those opportunities where you can. And it just gives your head a rest, doesn't it? And your body a rest, and just the energy that you can get from being curious and looking at things with that sort of new eyes, things that you might notice every day, but sometimes be too busy to spend time with, like the squirrels in the yard, or like my chickens in my garden, or whatever. Yeah, and it's like a little mini break. And it's brilliant because you can do it wherever you are, whoever you're with, and it just kind of restores your energy in some way or other.
I love how it's sort of just a daily practice, and sort of the more that you do it, the easier it becomes, and sometimes I think, um, I also went through a career change as well, and used to be a very busy bee, right? And sort of just mired in that culture of productivity. And so I'd think, well, I don't really have time to do mindfulness. That's going to be an hour to sit down and listen to a guided meditation or something like that. And then I realized, no, actually, you can just take a moment. You could be sitting at a meeting and, take a moment for yourself to just take in a deep breath, or to notice, a candle on the table, or a smile on a colleague's face, or something, right? And it doesn't have to take long. It can only take a moment, and it can be transformative, and it can be that little bit of magic that just transforms you when you're feeling stressed out, or you're feeling anxiety, or whatever's happening in your day. And so I love how everybody models those little um, moments differently. And I see it in Michelle's work. I see it in Bridget's work. I'm trying to learn it and express it in my own work as well. And it can be very affirming just to be surrounded by people who are doing the same thing.
Mm.
Yeah, absolutely. It is interesting how we do find ways to connect with each other when we're in complete different parts of the world, different cultures, different countries, different time zones, and we all find those ways to be able to connect. And mindfulness is kind of one of those threads. To kind of take it in a somewhat different direction too, I think it helps us find intuition as well. To stop and think about the messages that the chickens are sending us, that the bee is sending us, the squirrels, the trees, the flowers, whatever. That when you're able to slow down and really be mindful and pay attention to the present moment, just be still, not being so busy all the time, that you can really discover your own intuition that can guide us down different paths.
Yes, absolutely. I think those are the little treasures that we discover along the way, right? The things that change us, and we begin to see the world just a little bit differently. We start to kind of follow our intuition and see that maybe there is more than one possibility. And just to ask yourself some different questions and kind of be open to curiosity leading the way, and maybe seeing that there's a different path for us to take than the one that we're currently on.
You just used the word treasures when you were speaking, and that was something that I noticed, kind of connecting maybe what surprised me about how our themes intertwined. When I was reading through our finished articles, Kim, you and I both used the word treasures. I think I called it enchanted treasures, and you had a different adjective to describe treasures, but I noticed we both used the same word of treasures.
Interesting. I didn't notice that the first time that I read things through. That's really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah,
And maybe
Bridget.
that's what an intuition is, isn't it? It's sort of from with inside us, and treasure is often we see it as something that's like buried in a secret chest somewhere or whatever. So, listening to you talk there about treasures, it's kind of made me think of that. The intuition is the gold that's kind of inside us, and when we're busy and doing the doing, we don't hear it in the same way, or we might push it out. Because our head's doing the talking rather than maybe our heart, which is perhaps where our intuition is. But if we leave space for the treasure and listen to what's inside, it's kind of not just listening, but it's also trusting it, isn't it, as well? Once we found it, it's kind of trusting what it's telling us. And I think that's where going back to the noticing and noticing what's around us and what's happening and the seasons and the things that keep cropping up for us. I've learned to see those as little signs that can help to reinforce what you might be thinking, or for you to be curious about and to find out a bit more, and then that might spark something else. And it's not all at once either. It's not suddenly you find the whole pot of gold. It's about almost like Hansel and Gretel and the little crumbs through the forest following the trail. It's following that treasure, isn't it, a step at a time, and listening to the energy of it, to help carry you on that journey of finding the treasure, exploring the treasure. We never find the treasure, do we? We're always on a journey, and it's all good.
I
Yeah,
love
I
that.
like.
It's kind
Go ahead, Kim.
it's okay. Yeah, it's just kind of like it reminds me of taking a mindful walk and not knowing sort of where we're going to end up. And isn't it interesting how we did that? Sort of, we kind of explored in different ways the same idea and ended up at the same place. I think that's pretty cool. What were you going to say, Michelle?
Oh, I was just going to talk a little bit more and ask you guys what's maybe an ordinary treasure that you've noticed recently that maybe in the past when we were caught up in busy careers and busy lives that maybe we missed.
Yeah, for me, over the past few months, it's been the garden. Um, the garden's always been there, but when I've been busy out at work or, taking my children places or whatever, it's been a passing through place. Whereas now I'm at home in the mornings and through the seasons, I've really noticed what's going on in my garden, the birds especially, and in and out of the months, they've been quite an inspiration for me, and some of the kind of noticings and the little poems that I've penned on Substack. Yeah, so definitely for me, my garden.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I have a garden as well, so um, I think for me, though, one of the small treasures that I've noticed lately is I've just come back from some recent travels, and we were able to spend some time in a beautiful bay, in a place that we rented that was on the top of a cliff. And sort of, we spent one afternoon just sitting. I actually spent it right into the evening, so watched the colors kind of change across the landscape from the afternoon into the early evening, right into dusk at night. And because the bay was situated over a small village as well, it was really interesting to be able to look across at people coming and going and just seeing the day-to-days of daily life and things like that. And it didn't feel like a big thing in the moment, but it really changed me somehow. That noticing was sort of a small shift for me that maybe I wasn't even conscious of in the moment, because when I came home, I started paying attention a little bit more, and I started looking at the light, and I started thinking about how I don't do that, how I don't just sit and watch. And I feel like I'm always rushing from one thing to the next thing. And so I started thinking about what kinds of shifts do I need to make in my life to make more of that happen. So do I need to change my publishing calendar and rhythm? Do I need to do some things differently in my life so that I have more time and space to actually just sit and watch the light change, or just embrace more of that being instead of doing in my own life? So, Michelle, I'm curious to hear what your answer might be to this question.
Yeah, I love what you said. I have a couple of different thoughts. My first thought is the treasure of my neighborhood, of my community. So I found myself, especially this week, last couple of weeks, taking more walks, especially evening walks. Last evening, I just went out in my neighborhood and was going for a walk, just noticing what was going on. The dogs barking, people out working in their gardens, kids out playing, riding their little motorbikes around or playing in a yard. And I realized it had been several years since I used to do that because I used to do that regularly. It was almost a nightly routine for me that I would go out and go for quite a long walk back then. And so I noticed that was something that had been missing from my life that I kind of lost in all of the busyness. And that leads me to the other piece is just more self awareness, kind of like what you were talking about, Kim, that I notice my feelings more, what I truly need, what I want, instead of doing everything for everyone else. I'm pausing to ask myself, okay, if I let go of everyone else's expectations, what do I truly want to do with my life? And what kind of energy do I want in my life? And what might that involve saying no to so I do have space in my life for the things that I deeply love and that bring me joy?
I love that,
Very
Michelle. Go ahead, Bridget.
that feels so empowering, Michelle. And it's incredible, isn't it, that self-care in that way, and the kind of the ability to say no, to set the boundaries, all comes from the simple process of mindfulness and doing things that create a little bit of space for ourselves so that we can notice what's happening and how we feel, and we can then make a decision about what we might want to do if we want to change that feeling. Yeah. Oh, sorry, Kim.
I love how we're all having the same ideas, and I think I would have expressed it almost the same as you did, Bridget. So that's wonderful. I mean, it's just uh, lovely to see everything again, all of the past converging and the ideas coming together. I think any one of us could speak to the same things.
Yeah, I know trust was mentioned earlier, and how do we trust and follow that intuition? How do we stop and set down those expectations from others and truly trust that we have that light within to know where we need to go? Kim, maybe that connects with your kind of path. Like, how do you decide which path to follow?
Yeah, I think it's really tough when you're standing at the crossroads and you're trying to determine, which path do I follow. And I think a really important part of recognizing the journey is allowing for and acknowledging the discomfort that's part of the whole process. It's not always easy. There's one path before you that might be the familiar one, and geez, I've been down it before. It's really comfortable, it's safe. I like going down that path because I know what to expect. Maybe it leads me to my favorite little waterfall or tree or something. And then there's that other path over there, and it's really scary because I do not know where it leads. It maybe challenges what I think is even possible for myself. And so it's really scary. And I think when we're in a place of healing, and it sounds like, the three of us share that in common. We're all coming from, different places, but having that similarity of going through a different career change, or revisiting, where we are in our lives right now, it can be very scary. And so I think that's where I like the whole idea of choose your own adventure, because sometimes you go down the familiar path for a few steps and then you come back and you're like, okay, I'm centered again, I'm good. Now I'm going to try the other one, and I'm going to take a few steps down that path, and I'm going to come back. And I think the great thing about it is that it gives us choice, and we don't have to fully go down one path. We can kind of go at our own pace and take a few steps and come back, especially when we're healing. I think it's that process of returning. And Bridget, you spoke to that early on, right? This was something that I knew how to do. I knew how to notice these things when I was a child, but then all of these things in life taught me to do other stuff. And then I came back to it, right? And so it's this process of returning, coming back to the crossroads and just listening. Like maybe it's your heart that's telling you something, maybe it's your mind, maybe it's a longing, for something different for yourself, and just tuning into that and then taking the path that feels like the right one in that moment. And in the next moment, it might change in a different phase of our life. It might be a different path too.
Yeah, Bridget, how does maybe looking at things with new eyes help to find that path or trust that you're making the right decision?
Yeah, I think if you sort of look at things without any judgments and strip things back, you can really see things that you might not have seen before. So I think part of it is being aware of yourself and maybe what some of your barriers might be in terms of talking yourself out of opportunities, or maybe making judgments about certain things or situations or even people, and taking that sort of step back and looking at objectively rather than subjectively at what's going on in that situation, and being curious about it, and just really having no expectations, looking for different things that you might not have seen before. So if something difficult is happening, okay, well, what's the positive that might be coming out of that? And invariably there is one. I know the level of situations can vary that we're having to deal with, but it's kind of like, is the glass half full or is it half empty? And starting to sort of tip that balance and think about, okay, well, maybe this is really difficult, what's happening to me now, but actually, what is the door that might be opening here? What's the opportunity? How is this allowing me to grow? What is this teaching me? So that then you can think about where you want to go. And sometimes it's about also, and I've had to learn this, being open to the paths that you don't see, that come along. And you might think you're on the right path and you're going in the right way, but something comes along, and you've got to stop and you've got to look at that and you've got to explore that, I've learned, and think about also the other signs, the intuition and so on, to think, well, actually, is what I think is meant for me the right thing, or really should I listen here about what's going on? But I totally agree with Kim that crossroads are really difficult situations, and they're difficult for us as kind of coaches and therapists. That's often where we meet people as well in their journeys, whether it's a career crossroads, whether it's a big change at work, a relationship crossroads, or a life stage. It's challenging, isn't it? But at the same time, it can be where the magic lies, and it's there for a reason. It's helping us to stretch, to move out of our comfort zones.
Yeah, absolutely. That's been my experience, that you're even going down this path and you think you're on the right path and everything's working out, and all of a sudden, like a boulder falls down in the middle of the path and you can't keep going forward. You have to like figure out, are you going to go over the boulder and keep going down that path? Are you going to turn back? Are you going to go around it? Are you going to completely take a different path? And I think a piece of how that connects to my article on allowing space for magic is the small adventures. Even if we are on a path and find that maybe it's not the right one, we don't have to completely go 100% in right away. We can test things out. We can just find some small adventures to go on. Instead of taking the normal path that we're used to and that's comfortable, we might just go on a small adventure, turning right instead of left at the end of our driveway, or just finding a different way to test the waters, so to speak, of a different journey that we could be on.
Michelle, you're
Absolutely.
You asked a really great question at the end of your post around if success weren't part of the equation, what would you create simply because it brings you joy? And I think that that's such a fantastic question when you're talking about the small adventures, because what brings me back, to that self and to that expression of joy for me. And it's different for each one of us, but it can be something small. It doesn't have to be anything large. It can be just taking 5 minutes to do that one thing that brings you a little bit of happiness or a little bit of joy. And just even remembering an experience that you had around that can be beneficial as well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
photographs can be really powerful for that because you've captured that moment in the photograph, and
Yeah.
there's so many layers of emotion and meaning in there, and just looking at it can really kind of bring that joy back of that moment. Or even if it's not your photograph, but you love to look at a beautiful view or whatever. We're lucky, aren't we, with online and stuff? We could soon bring that up and just spend some time with an image that appeals to us to help bring us back to that state of joy. Yeah.
That's
yeah,
such a great
absolutely.
example, Bridget. Yeah. Go ahead, Michelle.
Oh, I was just gonna say, yeah, absolutely. That it could be something that we did because when we are on vacation, holiday, those are moments where we're choosing how to spend our time. There aren't any expectations or pressures on us. We get to decide what we do with our time. And remembering some of those things, asking what we did, looking at how we chose, that can help guide us forward a little bit too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes as well, we don't always know what we don't know, do we? And that's like there's that hidden bit that we don't know about ourselves and other people don't know about ourselves until we're kind of in there and we're doing it. And quite often on vacation, when we're relaxed, we're more open to trying out new things, aren't we? Mm.
We definitely are. And I think that's why it's so great also to be part of these kinds of experiences, because when we're around other people like Bridget right now, you just pointed out a photograph, right? Just different ways of how do we do this? Because I think that's often the challenge is that it's difficult to find ways to reconnect with ourselves and to have these small adventures. And we're so busy and caught up in the doing of things in our lives that sometimes it's hard to actually think about what that could look like. And it's great to have these reminders from other people, like what is it, how does it show up in your life, right? It can show up in a photograph or it can show up in different ways, and I think that being part of that community and getting those ideas from other people is just so helpful and valuable, at least in my own life and experiences too.
Yeah.
Hey. Yeah. And I think that's why, part of the reason I enjoy and admire both of your writings, because when we were getting ready for this and talking about things that, I just found myself going, yes, out loud, or yes, I get that. And oh, what a beautiful way of expressing that. And it kind of helps me to reconnect and to remember the little prompts and the little noticings and the storytelling and so on, because we are all our own story, aren't we? And we're telling it now. What we're doing now is sharing our story and creating our story. So that's magic in itself, I think. And often when we're kind of ingrained in the doing, we forget that because we're trying to fulfill responsibilities to employers, to family, to what we think we might want to do, and we can lose ourselves for the wrong reasons in the pages of our story. So I think mindfulness allows us to come back to that and to rediscover the joy that you mentioned. And part of rediscovering the joy is going back to what truly is important to you at a deep level, and then hopefully that will help to kind of guide us along the path and to inform our choices. And sometimes we need other people to help us with that too, don't we? And I know I've benefited at times in my life from somebody objective asking me the right questions, whether that's been a boss or a counselor or whoever, or a friend. It can really sort of help us to see the wood for the trees as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good segue into what are some of the pieces that we learned from one another as we were collaborating together. So what were some messages that we're carrying with us from this collaboration?
I learned so much from this collaboration. I mean, I think one of the things that I really appreciate about Bridget and her whole body of work is the art of noticing, because she embodies it in everything that she does and everything that she writes about. And so it feels very helpful for me as someone who is still on that path and that journey of reconnecting and rediscovering what it feels like to notice again and to come back to that, to see how she does it, and just to have that daily reminder to do it again and to do it in different ways. And so I really appreciate that about Bridget's whole body of work, but also in this collaboration as well. And I think, Michelle, you wrote a lot about magic, and allowing the space for magic. But one of the things that I truly value about your whole body of work is that you provide so many tools in a really concrete and realistic way, that it doesn't feel like you are just allowing space for all of the positive things, but also noticing the challenges. And I really appreciate that, because sometimes we think that things will just magically happen or our lives will be different. But you actually ground things in a really realistic way. And it feels like you're not alone on the journey, right? That somebody else, even though your challenges are different, I've seen ourselves connecting at different points on very similar journeys, and that support and camaraderie that we've had in different places as our writing has converged as well. And so it's just been a really amazing opportunity to be able to collaborate with two writers whose work I appreciate so very much.
Yeah, I would completely agree with what you said there, Kim, in terms of the opportunity to collaborate with two writers whose work is beautiful and relates to me and makes me react in different ways for similar and also different reasons. I think for me, in terms of the collaboration, completely agree, Michelle, that with Michelle's work is kind of like, I look forward to those daily bite-sized pieces of reflection linked to an emotion or a feeling or something that we do, and the way in which you write it feels so real, and also it's not overwhelming in how you write it. It gets to the point in a really beautiful way and gives me something to think about for that day. And for Kim, the longer pieces that you write, I just lose myself in your stories. We have the kind of Celtic connection that we both enjoy, and just the way in which the magic is brought to life through the stories, with the connections of what's on the record player, and also some of the Celtic legend and lore is just absolutely beautiful, as well as your daily adventure prompts or your tree calendar prompts or the maps that you do. Again, look forward to both of your posts. And I think for me, the collaboration has like wasn't anything I planned or even knew was a thing. on Substack, kind of linking it to what we've been talking about paths and directions. So for me, the huge thing that I've learned from the collaboration is that things come to you and find you, and the right people come to you and find you. And Substack's a big place, it's a big world, but somehow the three of us are connected together through that magic, and have been drawn to each other, and we are sharing the same rhythms, and the same philosophies. We're sort of blending our knowledge of science and nature and coaching and psychology and mindfulness and creativity, and it's all just weaving together in a beautiful way. And just the fact that across 3 time zones we're doing this, and yeah, just amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, that in itself is pretty magical, how we've all come together, where we live in different countries, different places, but yet we can all connect in one place and communicate with others. Well, thank you. I mean, this has been really touching to hear the positives. So, what I've taken away from both of your articles, Bridget, for me, I think with your article is seeing things in a different light. We can view things and notice things from one perspective, and then we can go back and look at it in a different way. And that can pique our curiosity a little bit if we start recognizing what might be normal or ordinary sort of things and see them in a more magical or different, unique perspective. And then, Kim, what resonated the most for me with your article was, I think, Beatrice. Is that right? That's your character name?
That's her name. Yeah.
Yeah, she did so much work in the glass house, but then at the end, she was moving forward with her life. And I really like she was going out to explore. And that really resonated with me that her work wasn't minimized because she chose a different direction. She did really great work during her time in the glass house, while she was also able to then move on and explore the world beyond the hedgerow. I really liked that. I mean, I think that speaks to my life's journey and where I'm at. And so I really appreciated that. So that's something I'm taking away from yours. On that note, I know we need to wrap up soon, but I want to end us, and Kim, you may need to explain this a little bit for listeners who maybe didn't read your article or our articles and are just tuning in. So just explain the hedgerow versus back to the glass house. And then our last question is, today, which path would you choose and why?
Thanks, Michelle. So I'll give a little bit of background. So in the story of the happy little bee, it's sort of like a choose your own adventure type ending to the story. And there's a few characters within the story. There's the happy little bee that represents adventure, that's going to travel beyond the hedgerow to other places. And then there's a glass house, a greenhouse that the bee visits that's rooted and stays in the same place. And then we have Beatrice, who's a writer, and she comes and she visits the glass house, and she spends some time there, and she listens to the little stories of travel that the bee shares. And so our invitation at the end of the story is to say, would you like to go down the path where you explore beyond the hedgerow to new adventures, new possibilities, or would you like to go wander back to the glass house and have an invitation to be in the present moment and to explore the art of noticing, as Bridget has talked about? And so I guess Michelle's invitation for us is to say, where would we go today? And I love that you said today, because I think that it can change from moment to moment and day to day. And I think for me today, I'm definitely like the little bee, and I'm choosing going beyond the hedgerow doing the Substack live for the first time was definitely beyond my comfort zone. And I was excited to do it because it was with two people that I know and admire very much. But it is scary, right, to take that risk and go beyond the hedgerow. And so I might find myself this afternoon or this evening returning back to the glass house just to kind of ground myself a little bit. And that's what I love. We don't have to choose one of the two paths. We can go down one for a little bit, come back, and then go down the other one. And that is perfectly okay. So, Michelle or Bridget, which path would you choose?
Well, firstly, I just think it's a beautiful way of sort of thinking about where we are and what we're doing, the bee along the hedgerow or the glass house, and going back there to rest and reflect. And I think sort of earlier on today, I was definitely in the glass house. I've been lucky to travel a lot this summer, and Sunday came back for more traveling. So I've been really wanting to be at home in my glass house, reconnecting with my home and everything around me. But yeah, definitely completely agree with you, Kim. Tonight I'm the bee along the hedgerow. This is my first live. Wasn't sure what to expect or how it would be. So yeah, out on an adventure. Yeah, and then I will be going back to my glass house like you and see what tomorrow brings.
Yeah, we have that in common. Michelle?
Yeah, today I'm with you, both of you. Today I am out exploring, going beyond the hedgerow. I do have some comfort that I can wear my therapist hat, but talking about mindfulness and things like that, but it's in a completely different way, in a way that I'm really enjoying and that fills my cup to be able to connect with both of you and with other people instead of just being confined to my glass house of an office, kind of meeting with people back to back to back. So I love being able to collaborate, especially in a way that fills my bucket at the same time as well. So on that note, I do need to go back to my glass house here in about 3 minutes. So it's been such a joy and pleasure having both of you join me. Real quickly, can you tell people in just a minute where they can find you?
Yeah, so I'm under the Reconnection space on Substack. I also have a Facebook page, Bridget Austin Coaching, and I have a book club page, Bridget's Book Club, in partnership with the Busy Women Club on Facebook as well. We haven't talked about books today, but they're another great passion of mine.
I would highly recommend Bridget's reading group. She really brings that art of noticing to the reading, and you can find it there on the Reconnection space. This is a great group to be a part of as well. For me, you can find me at Sanctuary by Kim West on Substack. I don't do a lot of social media. I'm not really on Facebook or Instagram or any of those things. So my only connection really is here on Substack. So, Michelle?
Yeah, so you can find me here at Hope Peace Together here on Substack. And then you can also find me. I have a website, hopepeacetogether.com. I have some courses that actually align pretty well with what we've been talking about, like returning to you, trusting your inner voice, and some of those things. I'll be running a live, or you can get it without the live component, called the 5-year plan. That'll be coming up. It'll run live later in the year, but you can do it without the live component at any point in time. And then I'm also on Facebook. That's Michelle R. Smith. I think it's MAMALIMHP, which is my mental health credentials. But thank you again. Thank you both for being here. Thank you to our audience who was tuned in and listening. I appreciate all of you, and we will talk to you again next time.
Thank you so much for hosting, Michelle, and thank you to everyone who is listening in. It was just a delight to be here with all of you today. Thanks again.
Yes, thank you so much, Michelle and Kim, and also to everybody here. It's been lovely. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. Sending you peace and hope until next time. Bye, friends.
Bye.